Hello, I'm Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. And this is video 2 in a series, My Board Game Life, where I'm going through my life and talking about how board games have impacted my life in various phases, eras of my life. In this second video, we're going to talk about a 35-year time span and 15 games that impacted that 35 years. In the first phase, the first era of this bigger 35 years time frame, it was a great era, the 80s and 90s, a pretty long span of time. It's when I got married in 1989 to Janelle. That's when we had our kids, Elena, Abby, and Jeff in 92, 93, and 96. It's when I started my teaching and coaching career in Winchester, Indiana. In 97, we moved to Indonesia and started a 14-year adventure serving overseas. And so there was a lot of just wonderful, amazing things that happened in the 80s and 90s. But in terms of board games, it was the Black Ages. We really didn't have much board games. It is the time frame when I think I bought my first 2 board games personally, and that was Clue Master Detective and Risk Castle Risk. Now, Clue Master Detective I don't have anymore. At some point, I gave that away. I do still have a Clue game, and if I had that Master's Detective version of Clue, I would have kept it. If I would have known how much I was going to get into board gaming in the future and how much I would love it in the future, I would have kept that one. But at some point, I remember passing it on. I might have left it in the dorm for the kids there when we moved back to the States. But that was a game that we did enjoy. And then Risk Castle Risk, I talked about in video number 1. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, and you can go back and see that when I talk about my love for Risk. You can see this one's been around a while. It's even got some duct tape on the corner there. But Risk Castle Risk, the Castle Risk aspect of the game really made me re-fall in love again with Risk, because it was more than just dudes on a map fighting each other. Now you had ways to use ships, and you had ways to win the game without conquering every territory. Just loved that part of the game and change. But really, from all of the 80s and all of the 90s and even in the early 2000s, for about 25 years, those are the only 2 games I really played. And so there wasn't much going on in terms of board gaming in those wonderful years. However, in 2006, we came back for a furlough year to the States. We were in Indiana, back from Indonesia for 1 year. And I had heard about this game, Catan, Settlers of Catan. And there were some great friends of ours that we were starting to play some card games and other games with. Jim and Jill Ellis and Jim and Nancy Koenig, some wonderful friends of ours. And the game Catan popped up at that point. And I remember ordering Catan. I got Cities and Knights expansion. I got Seafarers expansion. We got the Fishermen of Catan expansion. And it was perfect timing because they all came to the house the week before we had a massive blizzard and were out of school for a week. And at that point, our kids were in middle school, high school age. And we just played Catan for hours during that week of being on out of school, snow days. And it was just a wonderful time. We fell in love with the game. And when we went back to Indonesia, we took those games with us. You can see here Catan. This isn't the actual original one we bought, and I don't even have Seafarers and Cities and Knights. When we left Indonesia, I left those behind for some friends of ours, and since I knew we could get copies again back in the States. But that game of Catan was really, I think, as for many people, the one that really got us started. And it was a slow start, but it did get us started. There was enough, though, of an excitement, though, that I picked up a few other games to take back to Indonesia as well. I picked up the game Bonanza by Uwe Rosenberg, and we got several different little expansions. And we took those back with us and introduced those to some friends of ours back in Indonesia. We got Bang, the card game. Now, since then, we've upgraded to this one, the Bullet. But at the time, we just had the regular card game version of it and took that back with us to Indonesia. The only big game we got was Carcassonne, the big box. And so this was one that we took back again with us to Indonesia and introduced to a number of our friends with all these different expansions. I think this was the first big box version. No. And so that was kind of in the time frame of that 1 year, 2006, was a flurry of games. We also got Catan, the card game, and Oceania, Klaus Tuber games. And those games were really, they're special to me in a way. We don't play them much anymore, but they were the start of couples gaming. At that point, when we went back to Indonesia, we took those with us, and we were enjoying some time where we could have date nights. Our kids were getting old enough. Sometimes we would go to this one hotel in the area where for just a couple of bucks, you could swim in the pool and eat in the restaurant. And our kids would swim in the pool, and we would sit in a little bungalow and play Catan, the card game, or play Oceania as a couple. And so that's special memories to us, but also my wife and I still love to play board games as a couple. And so I think that was sort of the start of that hobby. Then we moved into the next phase. In 2011, we moved back from Indonesia to the States, and we actually settled into California initially. But at that point, I started finding some more games. I was hungry for more games, and so I found a clearance deal of Candemir, the First Settlers, which is a Catan adventure, which was a lot of fun. And then I bought it as a package with Ellises, the First City, another Catan adventure. Again, just found them on clearance and knew we loved the Catan games and picked those up, and that began to expand us a little bit. We were still sort of pigeonholed into that one kind of a game, but it began to expand our idea a little bit. And then Scott and Anjie Martin, some other great friends of ours, I love you guys, just introduced us to a game, Ticket to Ride. And we have Ticket to Ride, and we have the European Ticket to Ride, and we have several other expansions now. But that Ticket to Ride game was one that we found with the help of the Martins and began to love that one. And then I stumbled across these games, I think maybe at Target. I'd heard about this crazy concept of a cooperative board game, and I found Forbidden Island by Matt Leacock, Game Right Games, and Forbidden Desert, and we started playing those with our kids, cooperative games, and wow, what a great time. We had so much fun learning to play cooperative games, and so we loved that so much that pretty quickly flowed right into, I'm sure you know what's coming next, Pandemic. Pandemic became a game that we loved and played a lot and continue to play. And so we were starting to branch out beyond the Klaus Tuber, Uwe Rosenberg, Alan Moon. We were kind of in that sweet spot of those really classic games. But we're starting to branch out into these cooperative games. And then we actually went back to Indonesia just for a short visit for a couple of weeks in 2014. And some other wonderful friends of ours, Greg and Jen Evans, introduced us to this game, Dominion. And I fell in love with Dominion. You can see a few of the expansions that I have here. And that was the next kind of level in 2014. So that's from 1989 to 2014, 15 games that impacted our lives as a family, that impacted me as a gamer. And we went from 2 games in the 80s and 90s to about 20 or so games. These are the main ones in the mid to, I guess to 2000 teens to 2014. And then the pace picks up. So if you're interested to hear a little bit more about the history and what comes after 2014, make sure you stick around or log in later and find out the video number 3 for the next of the 3 in the 5-part series. If you like this video, make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you want to know when the next one pops up for the 3rd part of this series, click on that bell and you'll get notifications. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Billy, Indiana, signing out.